Well, my name is Richard Eng. I am the family pastor at Trinity Evangelical Free Church in Holdrege, Nebraska. Our students really don't know much about their own faith. Ironically, kids that grow up in our churches or go through our youth groups, even then, very often, they might not really know very much about what we believe or certainly why we believe it. So for us, the challenge is to disciple the next generation to pass down the historic faith in a way that is meaningful and helps these kids to make their faith their own.
I grew up in a very religious household. So we would go to church on Sundays and I would go to youth group on Wednesdays. But I don't think I was ever extremely close. I knew who he was, and I had heard of stuff like the Trinity and the books. I could recite some of the books, but I didn't really know very much.
So the reason I decided to go on the Immersive Experience trip was just because I wanted to learn more about God, and I wanted to learn more about the faith in general, and I wanted to learn how I could grow closer to God, and I wanted to learn about other people and to see where they were at with their faith and to see what they really believed in. I felt like this was the perfect opportunity.
So that's where Maven comes in. As I look at my students and what they needed theological training. They needed to know good reasons why Christianity is true and not just useful or gonna make me happy or make me have a better life. Maybe those things will happen, maybe we'll all suffer, but we need to have good reasons why we can trust that the Bible we hold in our hands is reliable, or that Jesus rose from the dead, or that God exists. So I looked for a ministry who can help my students be equipped to answer those questions, and I landed with Maven. I had been following Brett Kunkel's work for a few years, so I've been kind of familiar with what he does. And he does these trips called Immersive Experiences. And that was a new phrase for me. I think of it like this. Our youth groups spend time memorizing the playbook. So you think of it like a team, any sports team, where you've got your players and they're trying to learn what the coach wants them to learn. Learn the play, learn their positioning, what they're going to do. But it ends up all being theory in our churches. Rarely do we actually encourage kids to go out onto the field and run the play. It's just theory. So what Maven does is it gets kids onto the field.
Before the trip, I felt really nervous. I was excited, but at the same time, I was I'm talking to strangers. I don't know how it's gonna go, and I don't want to embarrass myself in front of people.
I was really excited to get to go out and share my faith, but also I was really nervous about it because I would be going out and talking to people that I didn't know and people that don't have the same faith as me. So, they wouldn't have the same thought process or anything. So, it was a little nerve-wracking.
At first, we were so nervous. My students were kind of avoiding. They weren't really wanting to talk to people. And we had to kind of encourage them, hey, this is why we're here. Remember, you're ready. You can do this. The Holy Spirit will bring to memory what you learned. And once they got one conversation under their belt, they were ready to go. And some of them were having conversations with members of the LDS church for over an hour because they were just pumped. They were so ready. They wanted to dig into it.
It was with these two elders. I was with a couple of my other buddies. It lasted about an hour and a half almost. We kind of I had some notes in my Bible, and they had some notes in their Book of Mormon, and we were sharing it back and forth.
One of the things that most impacted me on the trip would be when they had this one woman come in and she started talking to us about some of the things that are in the Mormon faith and how she had kind of escaped it and that she was trying to set stuff up so that she could help other people escape it. She had talked about the horrible things that happen with polygamy and how she had escaped, but she wanted to help others. And I think that kind of really stuck with me.
It really has changed the way that I do ministry. It's changed the way that I think about how I do mission trips and retreats. I've got to get my students evangelizing and in the game, so to speak.
It impacted me after the trip because I knew what I wanted to do, and and like I want to get to know more about different religions and like be able to talk to more people about it.
So going on some trips, like church trips, we have like a spiritual high, but I've noticed that this is not a spiritual high. This is something that's lasted longer than anything that I've really felt before. And waking up every day, I just remember the Maven trip and how much I've experienced and how much I went through with that trip, and it's really, really impacted me. And I know God gave me that trip for a reason, and He gave me the opportunity to go on that trip for a reason, and I am thankful for it to this day.
So I hope if you're watching this, if you're in a position of leadership in your church or you're a student thinking about going, see what God does. This is not your typical trip. This is not your typical conference or things like that, which are all good and they have their place. But if you want to take your faith to the next level, if you want to be equipped and sent into the mission field, this is the trip for you.